evening, one and all. Welcome. Haunted Voices Live right here, WLTKDB.com, hauntedvoices.com. Those of you folks tuned in on a different side, you're noticing something here spectacular. We're on video now. We're going to get to that here in just a moment. But it is June the 29th, 2021. Summer is just speeding by. We've got an amazing show planned for you. We got Preston Dennett. We're going to talk some UFOs, cool stuff like that. Nicole's joining us, of course, as you can see there. And how you doing, Nicole?
I'm doing great. Yeah, this is fantastic.
Isn't this crazy?
To be on StreamYard, I'm really excited.
This new platform thing is neat. We're going to YouTube, Facebook, and this Twitch. I've got to do some more research on this Twitch. But we're this video thing. Like we talked about, if you can't beat them, you may as well join.
That's a good mentality right there.
So, we're going to have some fun doing it, but it is a new video platform. And there's some things we're going to be trying with the website with this too. So you guys can actually watch the live stream on the website. That's fun to play with. That's going to be coming up here soon. But I wanted to get out a few little announcements here. Some of your programs you guys are going to see on the station there, these have been separated. Now, before they were all listed with the station under one umbrella. Now they're under the station umbrella, but they're all separate. So if you want to listen to the Afterlife Chronicles, you can search her show. If you want to listen to School Through Spirit, you can search that show. And they'll show up on their own podcast platforms. So I wanted to get that out there because it may have raised some confusion. You'll see the station is still listed as well. You're going to find all the shows listed there too. But you've got that going on over there at the website, which has had some quite a few revamps done to it lately, Nicole.
It looks fantastic. You've really been busy, Todd. You've really been busy.
It's one of those things where you just, change is good, right?
It is, yeah. Embrace the change, definitely.
Embrace the damn thing. That's what you do. You have some fun out there with it. Now, we are accepting new programming as well. We do have 2 slots open. And we are running a deal on that, Nicole, $50 off the premium package. You can find all the details over there on the website, hauntedvoices.com, WLTKDB.com, whatever you can remember. All the things are over there. You fill out the sheet, the program sheet there. Real simple. And that show idea will come in to me. I'll check that out. We'll be in touch. We'll sit down, talk about it. But it's $50 off. And that ends tomorrow.
That's an incredible deal.
Tomorrow. And then the next thing we have here is a new Twitter. Now, I don't do much with Twitter. I'm trying.
I don't either. I'm so bad with Twitter. Oh my gosh.
So today I hashtag.
Yay!
Nothing happened. No bells and whistles. No alarms went off. Anything like that. It was a lot of fun. But that was a change too, doing a new Twitter, because you're going to see Haunted Voices all over the place on Twitter. But just search us at 8HV Radio Show. HV Radio Show.
That's easy to remember.
Where is that? And I'm still getting used to this thing too. Yeah, there we go. You can just follow us right there, HV Radio Show. That's a new Twitter. Give us a follow. We're having some fun. Talking to a lot of teams on there, Nicole. Twitter is pretty cool about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of different investigation teams out there. A lot of you guys are keeping busy. That's a good thing to see. So give us a follow there. And then, Nicole, I want you to tell them about the new blog.
Oh, I decided to. Yeah, just a little extra exposure. So on my site, authornicolestrickland.com, I have a blog section, right? I mean, most sites have a blog section. So I thought I added a separate blog for Haunted Voices Radio. So each show that we do, I'm going to provide show notes on there, basically a little summary of each show, bullet point summary, and then of course the link to watch the archive. So I'm doing that for Haunted Voices Radio and for the Afterlife Chronicles, of course, with keywords and all that good stuff. So just a little extra exposure. Why not?
And blogging is something that doesn't take much.
It doesn't.
but yet you have to do a lot of creative writing, and I'm not a creative writer. You have to take less and make it more.
Yeah, the good thing about blogging is you don't have to have a lot written, but it needs to be substantial, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going back through some comments here. We're going to get our guest here, Preston Dennett. He's going to be joining us here in just a moment. Got some coming in here, little comments coming in from YouTube, and use Periscope. Okay, there's a recommendation to use Periscope instead of the Twitch thing. Yeah, there they are. There's Meg. So this is just neat. If you guys post your comments, we'll get those up there as soon as we can, and we'll post those throughout the show. So it's nice to see everybody here. Hey, Linda.
There's Linda. Hi, Linda. Hi, Megan. Forgot to say hi to Megan. Hello.
Now, our guest this evening, Nicole. Holy cow. Preston Dennett.
I am so looking forward to interviewing him.
He began investigating UFOs and paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. I love that. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. Now, he is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. A lot of you guys are familiar with that. A ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of over 27 books and more than 100 articles about UFO and the paranormal. Without further ado, holy cow, welcome to the show, Preston Dennett. It's great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Hi, Todd. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. Nice to have you on. Yes, I've been wanting to email you for a long time. I'm like, I hope he wants to do the show. So here we are.
Oh, are you kidding? I love talking about this stuff.
Yep. Us too.
I love it.
It's an honor to have you. And there's so many things that we're going to get into here tonight. So many personal things I want to ask you as well about the UFO phenomenon. But UFO research, what got you into all this, Preston?
I mean, it's like you read in the intro. I was skeptical. I hated UFOs. I was repulsed by them. Honestly.
Really?
Oh my God.
Oh.
Did not want to hear about it. The stars are too far away. Don't you understand? UFOs can't be real. Come on. You're lying. You're on drugs. You're crazy. You don't know your science. I was rudely skeptical. I admit it. I'm very sorry to anyone I may have offended back then. But I was relatively young, actually, when this all came at me real hard. I was 21 years old. 1980, November 17, 1986. I remember the day exactly. Captain Kenju Torochi came on TV and described his sighting of a UFO over Alaska. Probably know this sighting. It's pretty well known. But the newscaster just kind of joked about it, made a few, comments, giggled nervously, talked awkwardly, and moved on. Didn't really cover the sighting in any detail at all. I thought to myself, this poor, crazy, stupid pilot. What an idiot. He's clearly misperceiving, or he must be lying or hallucinating or something. But I thought, well, he just threw his career away, is what I thought. And turned out I was pretty much right about that. He was grounded afterwards. But I did remember my brother Mark had said he'd seen a UFO like 5 or 8 years earlier. I remember I was like 13 years old. He comes running to the house. I saw a UFO. It was at treetop level. We chased it in our car. I'm like, shut up, Mark. And but after hearing this news reports, for whatever reason, I went up to him. I'm like, you heard about this pilot, Mark? And he's like, no. And I told him, and I said, you saw a UFO, right? You said you saw one. He's like, yeah, I told you. And I'm like, okay, well, what did you see? Just kind of joking. And he described a really incredible sighting. Metallic craft, colored lights, a dome on top. I'm like, seriously, Mark? Are you sure it wasn't a plane? He's like, Preston, it was 100 feet away. It was totally silent. We chased it in our car. Greg was there. Phil was there. You know them. You want to talk to them? Those were his friends. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I called them up. I did. And they said the same thing. I'm like, okay, I know Mark's not lying. It doesn't look like he's misperceiving, but he clearly didn't see an alien spacecraft.
Right.
But then I asked my sister-in-law. Actually asked, I have 5 brothers and sisters. So I asked all of the rest of them, and they're like, nope, never saw one. But then I asked my sister-in-law. She's like, oh yeah, I saw one. It was hovering over Van Nuys Air Force Air Base in Van Nuys. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, 3 lights. They hovered there for at least 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, you sure? She's like, listen, I wasn't alone. I had my friends with me. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, talk to Adlai. He was there. You know him. I'm like, give me his number. And this is how it began. I found that a lot of people I knew had sightings. And you know what? Not one of them was alone. Every single one of them had witnesses with them.
That's so interesting how that happens.
Yeah, that shocked me. I thought people who see UFOs are uneducated. They're alone. They're out in the wilderness.
You get that stereotype, yes.
Really, I found out I had friends who had encounters, friends who had missing time. I brought it up at work. Boy, that was a mistake. Because Diane, this lady I'd worked with for years and years, I knew she wasn't lying to me. I love her. These are all people I love and trust. And she's like, oh yeah, me and my whole family, we watched the star-like object. And this was in the San Bernardino Mountains at a church camp, Camp Julian. She says, when we got home, my eldest daughter started seeing UFOs. And then my youngest daughter said gray aliens came into her bedroom. And I'm like, what? Wait, what?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I talked to her. She described she had a fully conscious encounter taken on board. She remembered it all. Not
Southern California seems to be such a hot spot. I mean, I'm in San Diego, and I have seen, I can't say with certainty that they're absolutely UFOs, but they do fit the description. But yeah, SoCal, very, very much of a hot spot for UFO activity.
Yeah, I wonder if that was what was going on here. I'm like, is it because I'm in California?
Right, yeah.
What is going on? I remember as Diane's telling the story, in walks Dorothy. And by this point, I had started reading UFO books because I wanted to disprove this. Shocked to find that there was a lot of books on this, and it wasn't swamp gas. But in walks Dorothy. I love Dorothy. She's totally unfiltered, and just really a funny lady. And she's like, "Oh, UFOs! One followed us home from the library." I'm like, "What?"
That's random.
Yeah. She said that she and her friend had just left the library. It closes at 9. Her mom came to pick them up. She was, a teenager at the time, and it followed them home. She's like, Preston, we lived 5 minutes from the library. We got home pretty quick. We ran upstairs, watched this UFO dart away, and then her friend Maria turns and looks at the clock. It's 10:15. She's like, Preston, it's like we missed an hour. She has no idea what missing time means. No idea. None of these. There weren't a lot of UFO books out at this time. And I'm like, oh my God, Dorothy, you're missing time? You may have been taken on board. She's like, what? I'm like, let me talk to your friend. Let me talk to your mom. And so that's how it kind of all rolled out for me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was not a happy camper. I was devastated, shattered, scandalized. I was really upset. Still am a little bit.
Oh, sure. My goodness. That is just horrendous. That is horrible. And there's a lot of UFO activity out there. There's a lot of documented cases. There's a lot of regression out there as well, or people that have been abducted and they've regressed, and it's so horrible. One case in particular, and you may be familiar with her, Kim Carlsberg. She's an abductee.
Yeah.
An amazing case that she had. And I think she had the time loss that you're speaking of.
Yep. I've talked to her. Yeah, she's a really amazing lady. I love her book that she wrote on it, Beyond My Wildest Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that title.
Oh, it was beautifully put together book. And
how often, with the missing time, what percentage of when the people that you interview, how often does that happen where they experience that missing time?
Oh gosh, it's a very high percentage. I'm going to say when someone has a very close-up sighting, that's the first thing I look for, because if something's within 100 feet of you, that is a red flag. And missing time can be seamless. there was a number of my early cases. I started looking back on them. I'm like, pretty sure this guy was abducted, like my brother, because honest to God, this is the strangest thing. He married, my sister-in-law, Christy. She had encounters as a young girl with the entities coming to her bedroom. That was weird to me. And one day she's just sitting next to my brother, Mark, and, rubbing his arm. She's like, "What's this in your arm?" And she started, palpating this like thing in his arm. And it was an implant. I took Mark to the doctor.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, because he's like, "I don't know what it is." I'm like, "Do you know when this appeared?" He's like, No, I didn't even know it was there. It's like a half of a matchstick, kind of, and you could actually feel it. And I took it to a doctor who is also a MUFON field investigator. He touches it and he goes, "Oh my God." And yeah, we ended up getting it x-rayed. It appeared to be organic, but not. I mean, they couldn't really tell what it is. A foreign body is how they diagnosed it, but there's no entry wound, and it eventually kind of disappeared. So I don't know. It's weird. I think now maybe my brother would.
And that is something I was wanting. That's the personal thing I was wanting to discuss with you as well, Preston. Dr. Stephen Greer, I'm sure you're familiar with. Of course, he's passed, but the alien implants, he used to remove those. Or Dr. Roger
Lear, yeah.
Stephen Greer, I'm thinking of.
Hey, it rhymes.
Yeah, Roger. He used to remove those implants. So there's a lot of those cases and things of that nature. But as far as the implants, what do you think of Uncle Sam disclosure? You've got the UFO disclosure. You've got this COVID vaccine going around. You've got conspiracy theories that we're being implanted with different DNA and chips and things of that nature from alien technology, nanotechnology. What do you think of that? Do you think that's in our recent COVID vaccine going around here? Can we quell some of these rumors going around, Preston?
And there's many of them. Let's just put that on record.
Way too many.
Yeah. I hate to say it. I don't trust our government. I just don't, because I know for a fact they are lying about the UFO situation. This is not speculation. We can prove this easily through the documents released from the Freedom of Information Act. And I've talked to enough whistleblowers firsthand. Some pretty high-level guys. I mean, people on Navy ships, a guy on the USS Clamagore, a Navy sub, some pretty interesting fellows who are in a position to know. And we know our government has lied about this, and this recent disclosure was pretty exciting. I was really excited to someone like, "Oh, this is going to be good," because they'd been talking about the pilots who'd seen UFOs and material from otherworldly vehicles.
Yeah,
they had this. I'm like, wow, okay. Are they going to show us the Roswell craft? That's what I want to see. I mean, that's
what I want to see.
Right? That's the end game here.
Yeah.
But I knew they weren't going to do that. There's the Project Blue Book.
Mm-hmm.
It said, nothing to it, no threat to national security. Condon Committee, nothing to this, no threat to national security. Robertson Panel, absolutely nothing to this. You're all hallucinating. There is nothing to this. It's no threat to national security. So I'm like, I doubt they're going to do a 180-degree reversal on this, locked in position. And they didn't. They said, well, there might be, maybe, balloons, clutter, radar returns.
Yeah.
Chinese, Russian, maybe. They couldn't even say the word extraterrestrial.
Why do you think they're lying? Like, I mean, why is there even a need to lie? That's what I just don't understand. Like, who are they protecting?
I think there's multiple reasons. Probably one of the major ones is this was a policy adopted very early on, which was somewhat understandable. When the Roswell crash happened, they did actually release that press release and then backpedaled, took it away. Too bad. Boy, we'd be in a different world. But I think that's the policy they adopted from the very beginning, and they've painted themselves into a corner. I don't think. We know they know it's real. We know this. And when they say there's no evidence, well, that's a flat out lie.
Mhm.
Right.
I think it's power.
Much
Power and greed is ultimately
Yeah.
what it comes down to.
That
control.
makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an oil economy, you know, because if they actually have these materials, if they have reverse engineered these craft, which I think they have, or
Oh,
at
sure.
least
Absolutely.
evidence for that is pretty darn compelling. We have free energy, and that's going to erase the profits of the oil company. This is a corporate-run world, and that's who's behind this cover-up. It's the military and the military-industrial complex. We were warned about that from the beginning from some very high-level people. I don't think they have any plans anytime soon of releasing control. They just want more money and power. That's what they're asking for right now, more money. We need more money to, quote, study this. I'm like, shut up. You studied this.
Exactly. They should know something by now. We are prepared. My goodness, we've all seen E.T. It all ends good, folks. Don't worry. They're around here somewhere. We're going to take a short break here, and we come back more with our guest, Preston Dennett. So much more on the way. Stay tuned. Watch us on the YouTube channel. Just search WLTKDB anywhere, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. More on the way. Stay tuned. Paranormal evidence. We scour the internet searching for true paranormal captures, information, and education. New methods mixed with old methods of capturing this mysterious phenomenon. Well, look no further for your ghostly voices than ghostly-voices.com. Nicole Tito and Lisa Crick take you on a journey into their paranormal world and provide you with true EVP and ITC audio captures, compelling information on debunking, some hilarious bloopers, and more. Remember, these two are veterans in the field and know how to capture the true evidence you are looking for. Ghostly-voices.com, your paranormal stop for true audio evidence. Ghostly-voices.com. A book of mystery, a book of one man's journey, a book of the afterlife, a book you must read. Ghost and Me by 5-time award-winning author Kevin Killen is a book of one man's journey in the search of the afterlife. Read of his chilling childhood experience, his investigative journeys, and his opinions of paranormal activity. Ghost and Me by Kevin Killen, an Ozark Mountain publication. Get your copy today online or wherever books are sold. "21 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices live right here, WLTKDB. Goodness. And we get our first little bug. Hey, it's the first video show, folks. We're going to have these little hiccups and things. Welcome. Our guest this evening, Preston Dennett, UFO investigator, paranormal investigator. We were talking about disclosure and things before the break. And don't worry, everything's being recorded as well. Those of you guys on the audio side, of course, we love you. That's why we're still broadcasting to you. Everything's being recorded. We'll have it uploaded about 35 minutes after the live broadcast. Now, one thing I do want to say is Haunted Voices is now separate. You can search Haunted Voices right there on Apple, iHeart. We're listed separate from the station now. So just search Haunted Voices, and you'll find it on your favorite podcast medium here at about 35 minutes after the show. But before the good stuff, we were talking some really important information that the public needs to know, Preston, about disclosure, what to do, what can they do to get what is rightfully theirs. I mean, the information is out there. They've declassified a lot of it, yet it doesn't make any sense. And to find some of these documents, you have to go so far down a rabbit hole on the internet. They're hidden. Is there any place easy, Preston, that you're aware of that people may be able to go for information on this?
Oh yeah. I'm really proud of the whole UFO community because the disclosure is being done by the people more than the government. If you want to see some good government documents, just go to Black Vault by John Greenwald. That's a very great resource. He started doing FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests as a teenager and was getting, great responses very early on. And of course, the government didn't realize they were dealing with a young kid at the time, but he's been in this field for decades, like myself. I mean, a long time, and is doing fantastic research in terms of getting government documents. So the information is in the public arena. It really is. Yeah, you have to sift through an enormous amount of disinformation, lies, hoaxes, and all this. But we have thousands of landing trace cases. We have implant removal cases. We have medical cases, injuries and healings. I wrote a book on healing cases, by the way, 300 documented cases.
That fascinates me, the healing cases.
Yes.
That's hugely fascinating for me.
Yeah, me too. And I think it really speaks towards the ET agenda because, Greys, a lot of these ETs are getting a bad rap and it's unwarranted. It's not justified. There is a campaign by these cover-up folks to make ETs look bad. And yeah, I absolutely understand that people do have negative contact. This is not all puppies and rainbows by any means. There is a bell curve of contact. Some is not so pleasant. But by and large, I'm very encouraged because I've looked at this very closely. When I first got involved in this field, I was horrified. People are being kidnapped against their will, taken into these craft by bug-eyed creatures who are experimenting on them with no compassion. And I still waffle a little bit and flip-flop back and forth in regards to the whole, kidnapping abduction. But as near as I can tell, if you really look at what's happening when someone is taken on board, the very scariest, worst thing that people report is the physical examination, which can be and is often scary. And understandably so, and sometimes painful, but often it's not. And often people are getting healed. And if you don't have a strong fear response, you are not paralyzed. You don't have your memory erased. I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to who have extensive encounters over and over again, where they're taken on board, who start out very upset, very scared, not happy campers, and eventually turn around. They become spiritually enlightened to a large degree.
Oh, I'm sure.
Really, this is serious stuff. Remember, the first words out of the ET's mouth is usually, "Don't be afraid. We won't hurt you."
Right.
And why would they say that? Are they trying to hurt us? No, they're not trying to scare people. They're not trying to hurt people. I think they do have some trouble with our fear, which they don't quite understand. But what I don't get is outright torture, sadism. I want to hurt you. No, that's not what they're doing at all. People are taken to the engine room, shown how this craft works. Not uncommon. That's fairly consistent.
Wow.
So that's a common occurrence in abduction.
Wow.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
You hear all these horror stories. You hear all this stereotypical horrific events. They were tortured and regressed it for years. They were hypnotized. It all came out. And there's actually some documented good cases that you're talking about here, Preston, where they're healed, where they're instructed, they're shown things.
Yeah, it's mostly that, actually. I'm going to say it's like 70%. I always ask the witnesses, the experiencers, how do you feel about this? Is this evil? And there are some, it's like, oh my gosh, it's demonic. I'm like, wait a second, because I looked into that. I looked into demonology and ghosts and multiple personalities and near-death experiences and Bigfoot. I looked into all of this because there is weird connections there. I can tell you unequivocally, this is not demonic. Yes, it can be very scary. Yes, some people do have negative experiences, but the ET behavior falls under the same umbrella as human behavior, but it's skewed far more towards the positive.
Mm-hmm.
That's so comforting, and it almost parallels, you hear of ghosts and spirits and a lot of people will, point to the demonic side or the malevolent side. And in my opinion, that's not the case. The majority of ghost encounters, spirit encounters are positive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that you see that translates over to the extraterrestrial side. And it's really comforting to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're a society that's drenched in fear.
Right.
That's what the media is. It's a fear box.
It is.
That's exactly it.
Fear box.
Exactly.
And they do. And they drag us along like sheeple. It's a crazy world out there. Linda's got a question here. Linda Myers. She's asking, do you think the amount of contact will increase now that the more information is coming out?
She must have read my mind, because I was going to literally ask that question. Oh my gosh.
Yes, and yes. Because what we've seen, we know UFOs have been around for millennia. We know this from hieroglyphs in the Egyptian culture, from petroglyphs in Native American culture, from medieval Renaissance paintings and wood carvings. We know they've been around forever. But since 1947, the nuclear age, by the way, is when it ramped up like nobody's business. And it's been a giant super wave ever since. Mm-hmm. This is unprecedented in human history. And since, it started out with largely sightings in the 1940s and 1950s, we started getting landings and humanoid cases. And really in the 60s and 70s is when we started to hear about people being taken on board. And there's been an arithmetic rise of the number of encounters.
It makes sense.
And we're still seeing that. We are seeing major waves of sightings over like Phoenix Lights, Gulf Breeze, Hudson Valley. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of them. Every 5-10 years, there's a huge sighting that's absolutely undeniable. This is a publicity campaign on the part of the ETs who are trying to get us used to their presence. Yes, there will be more sightings.
That makes sense. And I'm wondering if our advances in technology too aid that desire to want to make contact with us.
Yeah, I think it's largely our messing around with nuclear power that's brought them in large numbers.
It's making them a little cranky. They're curious.
Good point.
Yeah, I got a case in my latest book about Malmstrom. You may have heard of the Malmstrom incident in 1967, mm-hmm. where they came down and shut down the nuclear missiles. I found a first-hand witness. He was there. This is a message, a clear-cut message to not only the military, all humanity. Like, what are you thinking? And this, by the way, is one of the number one messages people get when they're taken on board. The ETs will talk to you if you have the presence of mind to stop screaming. They will give you messages. And over again, it falls into 3 main categories. One is warnings against nuclear proliferation, against our warlike ways, against greed and corruption, against pollution, warnings of upcoming environmental and social collapse because of this pathway we're going down of, mutual assured destruction. They're very worried about it.
Very worried about it.
Honestly, this is every type of ET is giving the same darn message. I don't care if it's grays or human looking or praying mantis or strange humanoids or light beings or the little blue guys. It's all the same message.
So in your interview, because you've interviewed hundreds of people about their encounters, in your opinion, how do ETs select the human individuals they want to interact with?
Oh, I've looked deeply into this because I'm curious. People are like, "Oh, it's blood type. I started asking people their blood type. A lot of people don't even know their blood type.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. Jeez.
It's Rh negative. This was a big thing for a little while. And perhaps there is a connection there, but I don't think so, because I'm talking to people from all over the world of all races.
Right.
Black, white, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islander.
Right.
They're not prejudiced in any way. It's evenly divided between men and women. That surprised me. I went through my files. It was 50-50. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's not age. It's not education. It's not religion. And it's not political affiliation. I started asking people, maybe it's not that. It's, I'm like, gosh, what is it? There's got to be a pattern.
Do you think it has to do with someone's intuitive abilities or level of intuition? Do you think it has something to do with that?
That's interesting you say that, because yes, there are 3 things that I found. One, and I'm going to say at least 50% of the people who have like really extensive being taken on board share one commonality, and that is their parents had encounters, or their grandparents, or their uncle, and their children are now. This is something that tracks families. This is something that I think, particularly with the Greys, it's absolutely following family lines. They have a very strong interest in genetics. This gets into the whole hybrid baby phenomenon, which, gosh, I cringe at what skeptics think of this. Half alien, half human babies. What? But yeah,
I've heard of these perfect human being looking gorgeous creatures, indigo eyes, amazing. Yeah.
So there does seem to be a really strong genetic aspect to it, and it does track families. But a second pattern is, yes, people who are profoundly psychic in any way. Because I started to, ask people, I'm like, anything else strange happened? Oh yeah, I have precognition all the time. I had a near-death experience, and I got really psychic. I do channeling. And sometimes this comes following the encounter. Sometimes it's before. But I can tell you that people who have extensive encounters have a very strong spiritual bent. They're profoundly spiritual people. Really nice people, by the way, too. And that led me to my final pattern, which really shocked me. And I'm like, wow, am I right about this? What I found is that people who are having contact are good people. These are people who are doing good work for humanity. I kept running into doctors. Lots of doctors. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Social workers. A lot of environmentalists. Human rights activists. Teachers. Inventors. Musicians.
Police officers.
A lot of police officers. I'm like, wow, this is a pattern. I always ask your profession now. And yeah, like recently I was talking, well, not recently, couple years ago, this lady from Norway contacted me.
Wow.
And I'm like, she had this encounter with Greys. They came into her bedroom, flipped her on her stomach. She's like screaming, "What are you doing? Who are you?" They didn't answer any questions, were very clinical, pressed something against her back, some sort of weird instrument. She felt energy pulsating through her. And then they walked through the wall and were gone. She runs to the window. It's all blue and weird outside. And then it winks out and it's normal nighttime. And suddenly her back doesn't hurt. She had severely injured her back.
Wow.
They healed her. I'm like, wow, okay, have you had any encounters before? She's like, no, I've never had anything like nothing. I'm like, huh? Well, what do you do for a living? She says, well, I used to be a graphic artist. I'm like, ooh, artist, because they love artists. And then she says, well, but please don't use my name because I'm super active in the animal rights movement in my country. I'm like, there it is.
There it is, right there. Oh my gosh.
So this is good news. This is another really good data point that says, why we should be encouraged about these guys. They're helping people who are helping you, helping us, who are really trying to wake up humanity. That is one of their major missions, is to wake us up to our own psychic ability, to make us all telepathic so we can overcome the greed and corruption that is choking our society.
Oh, that's so comforting to hear that.
Yes.
What percentage, of the people that you've interviewed have more of a telepathic communication with an ET versus an actual just, regular type of communication?
99%.
Yeah, see that?
Yep.
Oh, I have chills right now hearing that. That's just wow.
Some people do talk to them audibly, face to face, particularly the human-looking guys. I have talked to people who actually heard the Greys talking and the mantids. The Greys have lots of clicks and L's and consonants and talk very high and squeaky, but people can't understand it. Generally speaking, and it doesn't matter what language you speak, they will speak it to you telepathically. I've talked to people who have, English is not their primary language, and the ETs tell in their language, "Don't be afraid. We're not here to hurt you.
Right.
We need you to come with us." Yeah, I mean, I'm very encouraged about all of this, and my heart goes out to people who are having negative experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that does happen. I mean, there's a guy in England who's just not happy about what's happening to him, even though he has had some really benevolent encounters. I think what it comes down to is people feel like a loss of control when this sort of thing happens.
Right.
And like not knowing how to process it, maybe the fear component, and so if you're afraid and you're alarmed at it, well, then it must be negative, but that's not the way it should be, but that's maybe how people process it.
Yeah, I've talked to people who've had the same exact experience in its essentials, and they have completely different reactions. And when someone does have a strong fear response, it's very difficult to think clearly and observe objectively. Just talk to a nurse. Nurses will tell you how their patients fight back at them, and doctors, calling them all sorts of horrible names, which I won't repeat here, but it's a similar sort of thing. But it's not all happy. I do know there's one case that it was so harrowing. The person described what amounted to a pain threshold test. That's not nice. I mean, that's not nice at all. There is some lack of understanding of our emotions. This happened to Whitley Strieber, who I'm sure you've heard of. Whitley Strieber, the gray that took him is like, why are you screaming? What can we do to stop you from screaming? Why are you screaming? Did not understand our fear. Just couldn't wrap their head around it.
Can't comprehend it. And we've got a quick question. I want to get this out there. James is asking from YouTube, what about Joe Average? People who go to work every day, feed their families, plan for the future. Is the plan to have those helped by ETs to help them? What do you think of that, Preston?
Yeah, I think contact is much more widespread than people realize. I heard a quote from J. Allen Hynek, 1 in 40 people have had an onboard experience. And I thought, what? No.
That's high. That's high.
I was absolutely appalled. I'm like, there's just no way, because I know 40 people. This was very early on in my research. And that's what got me to ask everyone I knew, and I didn't have to ask 40 people. So my point is, it is much more common than people realize. And there are a lot of average Joes out there who are probably not aware of the fact they have had contact.
That was going to be my next question. Like, I wonder if people have had contact and then they just don't know it.
Yeah, that absolutely does happen. Yeah. But I think the ETs are working for all humanity. I documented some 300 cases of healing. I think that's the tip of the iceberg.
Wow.
Most people do not report their encounter, period, especially if they were healed. And look up spontaneous healing and spontaneous remission. It is out there in fairly large numbers, and people don't know how to explain it. I think there are a lot of the ETs don't need to toot their own horn. They don't need credit. They don't take insurance. They don't need your money. They are healing people in large numbers. They really are. I know this is a big pill for some people to swallow.
Yeah, I know.
And a lot of experiencers, are like, wait a second, I did not enjoy my encounter. And I understand that. But I think people really need to look objectively at what's happening to them.
Yeah.
Because people are almost always returned. Not always. I know cases where people haven't been returned. But I can tell you, I've got a number of cases where people were rescued from car accidents, drowning, assault, falls, illness, hurricanes. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, there was coincidences. They're not coincidences.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either. There's definitely some kind of intervention with it. I don't know what kind of intervention with it, whether it be universal like that, interstellar. But you're right. These things happen, and it's craziness. And Linda's got a question here for you real quick, Preston. Have you done any research on people who believe they are star seeds from another planet?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that comes up with quite a few contactees who are sometimes told by the ETs, you're one of us, or start to have memories of being from other planets, or being like a walk-in type situation. So a lot of people feel like, oh, I don't fit in. I'm not from here. There's a good possibility you're not. Apparently, ETs are super obsessed with humans. They love us.
Yeah.
And I think they've been genetically intervening for a long, long time. They are upgrading us. We are living longer. This is something they're very interested in. And I think a lot of people who are incarnating on Earth are essentially from other planets. I saw a channeler once, Daryl Anka, very famous channeler. And he chose me for a reading. This was in a group setting. And he looks at me and he points and says, "Oh, I see UFOs over you." I'm like, "Oh, really?" So I hadn't, gotten it all well known by this point. I don't think I'd even written one book. I'd written maybe a few articles. He's like, "Yeah, you were an ET in a past life." I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's like, "You're here to anchor the ET energy." And by chance, I had got to see a number of channelers, and all three of them in a row said the same darn thing. So, hello, my name is Gliptak Nurk. I'm from Planet Crouton.
Planet Crouton.
Planet Crouton.
I gotta remember that.
No, but seriously, this is a thing that many experiencers are dealing with. This is a very serious thing for experiencers. Often they have no one to turn to. I can't tell you how many people have told me, I haven't even told my spouse. I haven't talked to anybody about what's happening to me. People will weep over the phone, or when I'm interviewing them, and spill out their guts because they don't have anyone to talk to. It's changed a lot since the 80s when I got involved in this field. There's a lot less ridicule, a lot less skepticism. But boy, it's been a tough road for some of these people.
Look at Benny and Barney Hill. Look at Travis Walton. These people that had the cases back in the day, and the ridicule they went through, and the torture they went through. It's horrible, and it's one of those things where I think we're not alone. People just need to realize that, get over the stereotypes, get over these Hollywood films. This isn't the fourth kind. This could be something, just like you said, Preston, it could be something we all need, a nice healing, a refreshing, a reboot. Who knows? We just have to welcome it. I think this kind of change, but it's good stuff. And you've got an amazing book out, Wonderous. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this book. It's the kind of book I really love to read, which is firsthand cases, people who've actually had the experience. I've written a bunch of books on UFOs over California or other states, which draws on a wide net of research. But these are all my own personal cases, people I've interviewed who've had extensive encounters, and a wide variety. Bunch of onboard encounters, which is my favorite because that's where there's an enormous amount of information. But some interesting landing cases. I got to include 3 government whistleblower accounts, which I really wanted to include because I've been sitting on them for a little while and I didn't have room for them in other books. My best-selling book is probably Onboard UFO Encounters. But this is very much like that in my other book, Inside UFOs. These are people who've had direct contact and just some incredible cases of people, seeing ETs face to face.
Yes.
That's amazing to me. That's where I focused a lot of my research.
Mm-hmm.
What other patterns have you, especially in this book, Wondrous, what are some of the patterns of the experiences that the various people have had?
Oh, there are definite patterns. I mean, I know to a certain extent what to expect when someone says, "I've been taken on board a craft."
Of course.
I mean, there are absolute patterns in terms of what's going to happen to a person. They're often physically examined. They will describe a roundish room with indirect lighting. I always ask, "Well, where's the light? Did you see a lamp?" None of them ever sees a lamp. The craft glow in a weird way that has ambient lighting all over the place.
That's interesting.
So there's
Wow.
very, very strong commonalities. People will describe often not even a table, but like a dental chair.
Interesting.
They describe the same messages. Here's a pattern that is just crazy. What happens is people from different parts of the world are brought together in a very strange, synchronistic way. There's a case in there, a chapter I call The Cat People. This guy I interviewed from Montana described how he saw UFOs as a young kid, and his bedroom was in the basement, and these cat-like aliens kept visiting him. He said they looked like 3-foot-tall, hairless cats. That's how he described them.
Wow.
Holy cat.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have little ears or anything, but I think pretty much like grays, but very cat-like faces, he said, which is something I have heard before. It's not super common, but it was not pleasant for him. He'd always scream at them, go away. And they would, they would have been, and eventually stopped. He got married, met this lady, moved to Nevada, and they're watching TV, and this show comes on about UFOs. He's like, honey, I saw those guys when I was a little boy. And she's like, really? Me too.
What? Wow.
Yeah, and she says they look like cats, what she said. And I'm like, whoa. And this is something I keep hearing. I've got 3 or 4 cases like this in the book where people who are having experiences seem to be brought together. And there are actual people who've met on board UFOs as children and later meet as adults. And they're like, boy, you look familiar. Why do you look so familiar?
That is incredible.
Yeah. So there's an element of manipulation that's going on here. Mm-hmm. And I think the ETs it's an ET dating service. They are setting people up. They are.
Yeah.
The ET dating service. I love that.
Interstellar connections. Yeah.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
We got a question coming in here from YouTube. Is there any way to channel contact with someone of these extraterrestrials? Dr. Greer recommends a group meditation. Does Preston have any recommendations on how to reach out to them?
That's a good question.
Oh, yeah, I sure do. I kind of helped spearhead this whole CE5 movement, honest to God. Stephen Greer came to L.A. when he formed CSETI, which is all about using meditative protocols to call them down. And I wasn't going to go because it cost like $300 to hear him speak. I'm like, no, I'm not paying that kind of money. Mm-hmm. And the newspaper calls me up and they're like, we have no idea why we're doing this. You wrote an article once for us 3 years ago, but I feel compelled to pay your way and have you write an article. I'm like, wow, this is that weird synchronicity. So I'm like, sure, are you kidding? I'll go. And that's how I became a member of CSETI. And Stephen Greer's talking. He's like, here's how you call down a UFO. The best case I found comes from Preston Dennett. I'm like, whoa.
Oh, whoa, that is synchronous right there. That is definitely synchronous.
Wow. I was shocked. And he described this case I investigated down in San Diego, by the way. It took place on this was like 1978, what was then the tallest building in San Diego, where this guy, what's his name? Kyle something. At any rate, he was a special effects expert and set up a laser to play in tune to a radio station to attract attention. It was a publicity stunt. And it called down a UFO. And and then Stephen Greer goes to the second case. He's like, here's another good case, also from Preston Dennett. I'm like, whoa. And he described another case where the same thing, but took place in Santa Monica, where a guy who worked for NBC had set up pitchel lights, the searchlight type things in the shape of a peacock's tail, for a publicity stunt for NBC. And these UFOs came swooping down. And
oh my gosh.
So I wrote this in an article for UFO Universe magazine and said, calling all UFOs. Here's how you call down UFOs. And so I'm listening to this, with Stephen Greer, and he says, yeah, you can use lights.
The
Meditation.
lights. I remember him using those.
So that's a really good method. But meditation is the real key. So thank God for Stephen Greer, bringing this to a wider audience. I think he did real good work there. And I joined his group. We went out that night or the next night, and I could not believe it. There was like 40 or 50 of us. And as soon as we got to this little location right outside of L.A., in this slightly wilderness area, not really, someone shouts out, what's that? Look up. And we all look up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, first night. And it was this giant blob of light. And being
wow.
I'm not an astronomer, but I took a lot of astronomy classes in college because I was just, I was all about science. And I'm like looking at this thing, like, that's not a satellite. I mean, it was the size of a half of a moon, apparent size, and large.
Wow.
And not a plane, a helicopter, balloon, ... It wasn't anything I could identify. And so we went out the second night, and there was much less people. There was like 15 people. And we saw these weird strobe lights coming over our group. It was the craziest thing. And we went out for like 5 years, our kind of core group, and had a bunch of sightings, mostly anomalous lights. But yeah, you absolutely can call down UFOs by you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it in your backyard, climb into your roof. You can do this anywhere. A hot spot, I think, will increase your chances.
Sure.
You guys know what I'll be doing tomorrow night.
you and me both. I'll be out.
It totally works. I mean, you can do this.
Sherry and I were going to do this. I want to learn more about this. We have just a few minutes. How could let's say just the average person like myself, go there and do this and have
very simple. To bring a flashlight, go out there, meditate, telepathically call out, I would like to see a UFO. These guys are really telepathic. Put your intent, your willpower, put some desire and emotion. Really intend to do this. Imagine it happening. Really put it forth. And visualize your location. Visualize it very clearly so they can sort of hone in on that. And this is the so-called protocols. This is how it works. And it's basically just a matter of consciousness, reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
They are very telepathic. They will hear you. If you do this, on a regular basis, I could pretty much, I can't guarantee it, obviously, but it works. It absolutely works.
You folks have your homework. You folks have your homework now. I mean, get out there and try it because it's going to work better if the more of us doing it. So let's try it. Let's do an experiment and see if this works. See if you guys can call anything down like that. Preston barely scratched the surface with you, my friend. We are
exactly.
Amazing information. Now, any final thing you want to say to the folks out there that may be interested in the field of UFO investigations and things of that nature? They may be interested in that. Is there anything that you'd want to say to them to kind of get them started?
Yeah, this is absolutely a 100% real phenomena. I think if you take a look at the evidence objectively, the evidence is absolutely out there. This is a very important subject. Our government at the highest levels takes this extremely seriously and puts forth an enormous amount of money, effort, and time studying it and covering it up, I should add, making UFO witnesses look stupid, ridiculous, and on drugs and liars.
Mm-hmm.
There's a concerted campaign to make this look like a threat. It's not. This is good news for humanity. They are coming. Look how big the universe is.
Mm-hmm.
The ETs have been here for millennia. Do you really think they're going to take over now?
Right.
I mean, it makes no sense. We just need to relax a little bit. And the number one ET message is get ready. We're coming. There is going to be open official contact. And they really, really need people to release themselves from fear and wake themselves up to who they are. There is life after death. You can do telepathy. You can have precognition. You can have clairvoyance. These are all natural human abilities that the ETs have. Levitation. Honest to God, we have the ability to all these things are something that contactees experience because they're waking people up to this. This is probably their number one mission, that and trying to save us from self-destruction. So be encouraged. Try not to fear. We will have open official contact. The government cover-up is slowly collapsing. I would not turn to them for truthful information. I don't think they are willing to give it. We'll see. Their hand might be forced. I think that's what's forcing disclosure is really the pressures from the whole ETs.
Yes.
But we will see. It's a very interesting time to be alive. And we need to just relax, release fear, have fun. And remember, we are all one. Love is the answer. That was a direct quote from Gray, by the way. Betty Andreasen's Gray says this. Wazga. He said, love is the answer for humankind. Direct quote from a Gray alien.
Wow. What amazing stuff, Preston. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And hang tight just one moment. We've got so many great things coming up here, folks.
Wow. That was truly amazing. Truly amazing.
Oh, that's a lot of info.
Yeah.
Wake up out there, people. Listen to what Preston said. It's definitely important. Wake up out there. Do your thing. Do your part. Try some of these things. Work together. Great stuff. Be sure to tune in tonight, 11:10 Central. Paranormal Pete coming at you live. You can watch him on YouTube, Facebook, listen to him, of course, right there on the website, WLTKDB.com. That's where you want to go. Nicole, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us tonight as well.
Of course, anytime. This was such a great show.
It was fun.
Amazing.
All you folks out there have an amazing week. Check out the latest show lineup, WLTKDB.com. We'll have the archive up here in just a few. Thank you for all the comments and the good video test and all that fun stuff, too. We had a lot of fun. Have a good week.
Good night.